My view is that Donald Trump is contributing in this debate which is going on. And in the process of contribution, Donald Trump make a similar contribution that were made by white people, all of them, in the hearings, in the public hearings. Donald Trump is not saying anything we have not heard from white people in all the hearings. I even commented and said, I'm still to meet a white person who support expropriation of land without compensation. So why are you shocked? I see leaders of the EFF and everybody responding to Donald Trump. I don't have time for nonsense. I don't have time for nonsense. I expected this. And more backlash is going to come. If South Africans are not ready to expropriate the land because they are scared of sanctions, they are scared of backlash, then don't vote for the EFF. Because you vote for us, we are going to expropriate land. And Donald Trump will come for us. And Britain will come for us. And the EU will come for us. I said, and I said this throughout my life in the movement, that for everything good comes the pain before. If you're not prepared, South Africa, to take the pain, then forget about the land. Donald Trump has not said anything extreme. Things are still going to come. I hope the Zuma group in the ANC, which is supporting this thing, they know the consequences. We know the consequences. We know that the first response will be killing. They will kill us for that. There's a group of white right-wingers who are being trained by Jews in Pretoria to be snipers. Snipers. They are not training guns. They are training in a farm in Pretoria. We know it. Death is the first price we are prepared to pay. The second price we are prepared to pay for this land is poverty. They will close taps. But if there is a conviction, and not sloganeering and public opinions, then we must be prepared for everything. It's a war. We must be prepared for Donald Trump and all of them. We're not scared of them. We remain unshaken. Actually, we are more determined after the Donald Trump tweet to expropriate our land without compensation. There is no white genocide here. It's an absolute rubbish to say there is white genocide. There is black genocide in the USA. They are killing black people in the USA. There is black genocide here in South Africa. Black people are being killed all the time. A farmer has been sentenced to life now recently for having killed a farm worker. Imagine if it was a black person sent life for having killed a white person. It will be news all over. But this black person was killed and a white farmer sent to prison for long time in jail. It's once off reporting and it's done. There is no scientific evidence that points to any white genocide in South Africa. It's not true. And we're not scared of such things. We're not going to be distracted by anyone. Only death will stop us. Not Trump, not poverty, not sanctions. We have all of them in our mind. We know the consequences of what we're asking for. We know it. And it's not like we're going into this thing without knowing the consequences. So AfriForum is the embassy of the USA. If you want issues to reach USA, go to AfriForum. Then you shall get a proper response. But otherwise, AfriForum is nothing to us. We're not scared of AfriForum. We're continuing business as usual. No, that we're not these Twitter revolutionaries. If we were to say to them, all of them, let's go to the US embassy, none of them will come. They tweet from their comfort beds with bed heaters. So we are on the streets. We're fighting this thing on the streets. We are on the picket lines. That's why we're not shaken. We know this is what people want. And if there is anyone who's in this thing without knowing the consequences, then you are in the wrong place. Cyril, you could hear the man is in pain to explain these things in Parliament yesterday. He calls me Musima Imani because he's troubled. He can't even think straight. He's in pain. It is the most difficult thing to explain a policy you don't believe in. How do you say you must expropriate land and give people title deeds? Our people, and I will not disagree with them, if they were to have a paper like this called the title deeds, they want to eat title deeds. Here is a paper called title deed, yet you remain poverty stricken. And here is a man with money who says to me, give me that paper, I give you the money to eat now. They will take the money. You are setting our people up for failure when you talk title deeds. Always in politics, you must ask the question, who's raising this and who stands to benefit from this? They are going to give our people title deeds. Our people are going to use those title deeds as surety. And they will not be in a position to pay the debt. And the white people will come and take those things. And the story that white people stole the land will disappear. Because they will say, no, we took the land rightfully so because they couldn't pay us. They were owing us. So they are going to give you the land and come and buy it from you close to nothing. Because you will not have money, you will need money now. He says the reality is that people who got the houses now and title deeds have not sold the houses. He must go to the RDP houses and go and look for the owners of the RDP houses. Yeah. They are not there. RDP houses are being rented out. The owners of the RDP houses went to squat somewhere. Why? They want to make money. They want to make money.
Fellow South Africans, almost 400 years ago, a criminal by the name of Jan van Riebeeck landed in our native land and declared an already occupied land by the native population as a no man's land. van Riebeeck, the first descendant of the Dutch to arrive in the Cape, will later lead a full-blown colonial genocide, anti-black land dispossession criminal project, arguing that simply because our people could not produce title deeds, this land that they have been living in for more than 1,000 years was not their own. Essentially, he was disregarding their humanity, treating them as part of the animal world. To him, and many who would have come long after him, the Africans were less than human, not deserving of land ownership. On this basis, the project disempowering Africans of the ability to call this place their land was initiated in blood and in pain. Millions ended up in the humiliated, conquered township condition of being cheap and easily disposable labor. Cecil Rhodes, Paul Kruger, Jan Smuts, General Herzog, Verwoerd, Botha, even de Klerk, all labored on the Van Riebeeck assumption that Africans are less than human. They all, one after another, assaulted the humanity of Africans, keeping them dispossessed of land as cheap and easily disposable labor. Since those painful days when the Khoi of the Cape were defeated and conquered at the establishment of the Cape Colony to the area of the 1,800 with expansion of colonial control into the hinterlands. The days of the Battle of Nome River in 1838 against the Zulu people, the Battle of Mariko River in 1837 against Mzilikazi in north of Transvaal, the attacks of Tababusiu of King Moshoeshoe in 1865, the village raids of Bavenda that led to heroic resistance by King Makado in 1867, the capture and imprisonment of the Khoi chiefs in Robben Island fighting for land in 1870 up to the Land Act of 1913. Colonial crimes against humanity of native population did not end there. With the Land Act of 1913, they continued through the forced removals of the Group Areas Act that displaced millions of black people to live in prison camps we now call township. The so-called township is not a settlement of human beings, it's a prison camp. Those who came in power in 1994, carrying the popular mandate of our people to restore the dignity of African child by reinstating land to the dispossessed, forgot their mandate. They became drunk in luxury and glory, building false reconciliation without justice. It took the formation of the EFF 20 years later to revive the question of the dignity of our people in the need for our land. It took the arrival of the EFF in these chambers to return in the central agenda of human freedom the need for the land that was dispossessed through a brutal crimes against humanity. The time for reconciliation is over. Now is the time for justice. If the grandchildren of Jan van Riebeeck have not understood that we need our land, that over and above it is about our dignity, then they have failed to receive the gift of humanity. We do not seek revenge. Though they caused so much evil in our land, we do not wish for their suffering, though they caused so much humiliation of countless generations. All we want, all our people ever wanted, is their land to which their dignity is rooted and founded. Today, let us close this question once and for all. Let us unite and pay no one for benefiting from the crimes against humanity. Let us come together and agree on this noble, historic and human call to expropriate land without compensation for equal redistribution. Many want us to debate food security and economic development, but how can we do so when we do not have the land? They want us to come to the table with their bosses and as beggars, because that is unacceptable. The ability to develop policies on food security depend on land redistribution, not the other way around. Those who hold the land labor on the false idea that to distribute it, we must first establish a food security program. No, we must distribute the land, then we can all talk about food security program. We invite you to engage, not to pick up spears and guns. We invite you to come to the table and realize that nothing means anything for our people except their dignity in the land ownership. For a lasting peace, security and justice, land must be expropriated without compensation for equal redistribution. Would have failed those who came before us if we were to pay anyone for having committed a genocide. We cannot thank them for having killed innocent people who were fighting to protect their own land. Many people say people who came here, they were running away from their own problems in Europe, and our people welcomed them here in South Africa. It is not true. Why would you engage in a program to kill people who have welcomed you? Those who are saying we must pay for the land are actually arguing us that we must thank those who killed our people, because those who did so, they did so with an intention of wiping out a black generation. We must ensure that we restore the dignity of our people without compensating the criminals who stole our land. Those who continue to protect these crimes are themselves accused of crime, because those who protect crime are criminals themselves. All of us must come together and say, enough is enough. Our people must get the land. We have offered the ANC our 6% to amend the constitution, and that 6% still stands to the African National Congress. We want to say to the ANC, it is now an opportune moment, since you have agreed in your conference to amend the constitution. Anyone who says we cannot expropriate land without compensation, without amending the constitution, that person is misleading us. Because if that was the case, the ANC would have long expropriated this land without compensation. So we need to amend the constitution, and we must do so unashamedly. It is not unconstitutional to amend the constitution. It is constitutional to amend the constitution. That's why the constitution makes such a provision. We must stop being cowards. We must stop egg walking around the white minorities who are governed by the fear of the unknown when it comes to the question of land expropriation without compensation. The investors of this in this country just want a policy certainty. Once we say we're expropriating without compensation, there is no investor who will leave the country. They will look at our policy and say, how do we continue to make money within the expropriated land? So those who don't agree will continue to ridicule our struggle because they never suffered the pain of losing land.
Actually, we were in the hearings. More stronger things were said than what the king said. We have heard the Boers declaring civil war, that anyone who touches our land, there will be blood on the floor. They didn't say it in a diplomatic way, they said it straight, in a very provocative manner. But we don't get angry and all that because it's their contribution. It's an emotive issue. People say all manner of things they want to say. You know, this thing of the land is very simple, comrades. You just go into a village and look at how many families are there sharing 5 to 10 hectares called their settlement. 10 hectares. And then you go next to them, you find one Afrikaner family owning 1,000 to 2,000 hectares alone. And the village is constituted by more than 2,000 families. They are sharing 10 hectares. One family of an Afrikaner owns 2,000 hectares. And they only use 200 hectares of the 2,000 hectares they are owning. And then don't touch it. Don't do anything about it. Let these villagers continue to share the 10,000 hectares when one person owns 2,000 hectares. So it can be an acceptable practice. But what I find actually more problematic is that when we speak about racism in this country, people say all manner of things. But I'm still to see a white person who supports expropriation of land without compensation. This thing that actually the division is a class division in South Africa is not true. Because even the poorest white person who doesn't have a land, who has got nothing, you pick up that person at the robots and say, what is your view about land expropriation? That no, leave the land alone. The poorest white person. So in South Africa, we are still to deal with class divisions. At the core of our divisions is racism. That even the white hobo can't imagine black people owning a land. And it will collapse the economy. Because the way you are so dirty, everything you touch, you dirty it. That's what they say about us. That will collapse the economy. That everyone else will go. That was Zimbabwe. But that which we are doing now, I'm still to see a person who's going to show us that this was done in Zimbabwe. That we're doing here. It has never been done in Zimbabwe. The consultations brought involvement of everybody and allowing those who own the land to come to your meetings and insult you. It has never happened in Zimbabwe. And then that should give you comfort that our process is completely different from the Zimbabwean process. It's a completely different process. Stop sensationalizing, stop being alarmist, allow democracy to play its own role. With regard to the land, I think that is what we want to say. There is no food security which is going to be disrupted here. Not at all. Who are we to go into a farm that is producing food for us and say, no, you must cease operations, and then we are taking over? The ordinary people actually told us on the ground that these whites, when you buy land from them, you give them millions. They put stones in the borehole. They damage them. That's why when you come back and say, we've given you the land, you don't do anything with the land, they say, we didn't find anything functioning here. Before you paid them, everything was functioning here. After you paid them and we took over, everything collapsed. They poisoned the land. They take our millions and still poison the land. They take our millions and break the boreholes. So why would we want to engage in a risky process like that? All we are saying is that we want the land to be democratized. The ownership of the land in South Africa must be reflective of the demographics in South Africa. Because the counter argument is that no, give us title deeds, give the people title deeds, give the people to own their RDPs. Our people don't want RDPs. RDPs to do what with RDPs? Cattle can't graze in an RDP. We want productive land for our people.
No, you can disagree, but the reality is that you are in possession of a land that was stolen from us. And we want it back without any apology. We want that land back, and we are going to work together. I can tell you now, whether you are in denial or not, the demand for the land is growing and people are becoming impatient. And we don't want Zimbabwe here. We don't want Zimbabwe in this country. It has to be done legally, procedurally, in a manner that is not going to put the country and the economy in a disaster. We have to talk about it. We have to say, how do we, in a proper manner, make sure that everyone benefits from this land?